Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak here today. My name is Daire. I'm a lecturer at the Liverpool School of Tropical Medicine. Working with industry has formed a really big part of my research, but also my career development as well. And when I was asked to speak today about working with industry, I was trying to think about kind of what were the benefits that I had gained from working with industry. And I started to think more broadly around careers as well as research as well, because I think there's kind of unprecedented times and pressures on ECRs in AMR in the UK. There can be some really big barriers there, really big challenges. So I wanted to just talk about kind of the benefits and also barriers and how to overcome them of working with industry, because I think it's a really big untapped resource that I think all ECRs should be trying to capitalise on. So for those of you unfamiliar with LSTM, we're based in Liverpool, very much focused on global health. We have about 600 members of staff. We operate in over 70 countries. And we're very research focused. We don't have any undergraduate teaching. We have a small postgraduate cohort. So we're 98% funded through research. And of that, about 20% is industrial work. So that's a very important area of research for us. But we work across a whole range of disease indications and areas, everything from mechanistic AMR through to clinical trials and health economics. And so just to kind of dig down into that a bit more, so we really have a very broad translational research ecosystem at LSTM. We have a very large suite of BSL-3 labs, a range of kind of bespoke innovative technologies. We also have clinical facilities, so we have an inpatient CL3 human challenge facility, which is recently launched, we're very excited about. But we also work with everything from diagnostics through to 3D organized tissue culture models and human challenge as well. So this is kind of a snapshot, I guess, of my career to date. A colleague of mine described this as a really bad graphical abstract of an obituary for me. But I guess what I want to highlight here is that my academic route is probably quite similar to lots of people, so PhD, postdocs, but actually my entire career pathway, I've always wanted to be quite engaged with industry. That was really challenging over the past few years because I don't think they necessarily sit very well together, even though they can be really well linked. So I was always trying to engage industry throughout, and that kind of ended up bringing me to LSTM for a postdoc focused on SME-focused research, small, medium-sized enterprise research. And from there, a lectureship on AMR therapeutics, working with industry. But there was really no clear roadmap on how do we work with industry. And as an ECR moving through this pipeline, how do you engage industry? What are the opportunities? And I found that really challenging over the years because I felt like I was quite kind of, blind going into the different things. And apart from having some very good mentors and getting some very good advice at times. So I guess that's what I'd really like to focus on today, I guess, is just those opportunities and also barriers I think that you can all capitalize on. I think will really strengthen your research, and I think will also add that job security and help with career development and progression as well. So my group, we very much focus on chronic AMR infections. We focus on understanding AMR mechanisms, pathogen-host interactions. We do a lot of work developing novel therapeutics, but very, very much the core of what we do as well is global partnerships, and that's with industry as well, healthcare, and also in social sciences and community groups. So the pathogens, disease indications that we work on include UTIs, lots of non-tuberculous mycobacteria. I think I played quite a few posters today, quite excitedly seeing Mycobacterium abscessus and avium and things, but also TB as well. And so we utilize a range of genomics, pathogen-host interaction biology, and also therapeutics as well. But I think that's probably the extent of the science I'm going to go into today, but I'm happy to go into further detail afterwards. So this was one of the first external competitive grants that I got. This is as my second postdoc and moved to LSTM. And so this came about through Innovate UK, so that's industry linked. I think it's actually quite a nice example to use today because this is I got this grant with an Oxford spin out with Oxford collaborators. It's my first time in Oxford today, so it's nice to be able to kind of recognise my links to Oxford, even though it's my first time here today. And so this is a really exciting project, and first call around engineering biology, and I was the LSTM principal investigator. So as a postdoc, that was a real kind of bolster in trying to get that career progression. So I was very fortunately supported by LSTM to do that, and this project was really successful. It was a really nice approach to how we can engineer live bacteria with these suicide vectors so that they can become a better vaccine rather than using things like formaldehyde. So that project completed, and that was kind of a really important step in learning how to work with industry. And so then that kind of built into one of the grants I'm co-investigator on now called the Biologics Regional Innovation and Technology Ecosystem, or BRITE. It was great to hear some of the biologics mentioned today, and we take a very kind of broad view around the definition of biologics. Many people think that that's just monoclonals. We Jennifer today talking about the value of monoclonals in infection, but actually this includes everything from phage through to vaccines and gene therapies. And so biologics are underutilised in AMR, but they're a quarter of the UK pharma market, so that's a huge share. But 80% of current monoclonals is in the global north, where actually there's a really big demand as well in the global south and in LMICs. But there's some really big barriers there, and that's around trying to move things from academia into the commercial sector. So again, earlier somebody said about starting up a company and trying to move their assets out of that HEI environment through to industry. So that's something that we're doing as well in Bright. So we're aiming to establish the Northwest as a global manufacturing destination. And really at the core of this as well, we want to democratise and enable access to biologics in LMICs. And how we're doing that is trying to drive those HEI, higher education institute, biologics assets through to manufacturing. And I won't go into this, but this is just to highlight, these are all the industrial partners that are involved in that project, right? They're embedded across the entire kind of cross-cutting themes and work packages, so that they're really important for us. And I think this is probably one of the largest kind of diverse consortia assembled in the Northwest. So we're really excited about working with that. But this has all kind of arisen from a long track record of trying to kind of build how we work with industry and how to leverage that as best we can. So looking at this from the ECR perspective, so why partner with industry for antimicrobial research? Well, so the first thing you'd want to do is you want your work to have impact. I think it's you know, we all do when we're in the lab, very focused on experiments and papers, but actually that broader picture, and this is something that's been asked of us more and more, is to demonstrate that impact. Industrial partners are essential to scale up therapeutics and vaccines. They can take on some of the really big challenges around scale up, and that means that you can kind of de-risk the development as well. I think a really nice example of this was Bedaquiline. I was asking my colleagues' work, I said, what are some really good examples of academic industry partnerships? And everyone said AstraZeneca vaccine. But I said, I can't mention a virus at an AMR conference. So I've gone for Bedaquiline. And so this is the first new antibiotic class for decades. And that was developed through the TB Alliance, Janssen, and academic partners. And so there's major advancements in MDR TB treatment, which I won't go into. But there's a real step change in how we look at developing therapeutics for TB. But there were issues around patent protections, profit focus, and also manufacturing led to some limited use. And there was a lot of media coverage as well around patient groups protesting to try and get access to this drug. So there's pros and cons, and I think, you know, there's definitely an argument to be made about, you know, protecting your assets and your IP, but industry effectively are really essential. The second, why you want to work with industry, is diversification of funding revenue. So this again is widely covered. UK university deficits are rising fast. In 24-25, is 43% of universities were in deficit, and now we're expecting that to go to 72%. So It's difficult to get funding now. It's challenging. We saw funding freezes with the UKRI. We see different priorities shifting with Welcome. And so really we need to be embracing this attitude of diversifying where funding can come from. But I think it's important that you set your expectations because it can take years to progress new therapeutics. Higher education institutes and universities can have cost-saving measures that can impact discovery science. So you might find it very difficult to be able to fund. You might need some very small amounts of money to do specific experiments, but you might find that challenging to access. And work with industry is a way to open up revenue to do that kind of science. And so diversifying your income, and so thinking about taking a really broad church approach to this. You can demonstrate innovation, entrepreneurship, support your science, and create strong evidence for grants, which is really important as well. And there's been this major shift in funder priorities. So this happened last year. There was a new UK government policy stack that came out. And this is really essential as ECRs to have literacy in these. So you really need to familiarise yourself with these documents. There's the UK Industrial Strategy, there's the Life Sciences Sector Plan, and there's the NHS 10-year health plan. And this is really now what people are looking for to be embedded in grants and fellowships as you apply. And what's also important is that industrial work is high returnable. So for those of you who aren't familiar with this is the Higher Education Innovation Fund. It works very differently in different institutes, but it's money that is given to institutes by the government to translate their research into impact. And this is not more money to do more science. This is very specific translational funding. Some universities will open it up to academics, and others will, I think, will kind of say, we never get any, it might disappear somewhere. But what's important is that if you do industry work, it's high returnable, and that's a very specific output that you can claim. But there are these major challenges in work with industry frame or research. Finding the right collaborators can be really tough. You can spend a lot of time doing this. You can be pursuing partners that mightn't go anywhere. Large industry, they will have very large projects that might not be possible. SME might be funding limited. But what is really nice is that the UKRI have these tools to help you find industrial partners. So I'd recommend everybody look at this and try to build up that network of partners. Then the other challenges are in industrial literacy. So what do we mean by this? So it's a very different language that industry will use. So we might talk about papers and outputs and grants and impact, but they might talk about target product profiles, return on investment, and intellectual property. And the financing is often a barrier as well because cost recovery and VAT can be prohibitive to doing work. So these are just some of all these challenges that you kind of need to consider. And then you can have these conflicting needs from various parties as well. And so, depending on where you are, you'll have different policies on how you can work with industry. But I think what's really nice is you can see on the INEOS Oxford Institute website that they're very much focused on that industrial partnership. But I think in your own institute, I think you need to ask, how does this support ECR development? If you were to engage with industry, will this support your work? And are ECRs, are you actually engaging in this in your institute as well? So it's really important that you look at building this research AMR profile. So institutional support is really essential. This is where a lot of projects fall down. I think it's what's led to a lot of inertia in working with industry within the universities. So understandably, your PI or senior management might have concerns over time being spent on non-funded projects or unrelated work, or it might be small amounts of money and there might be very clear outcomes. And it's this question of, what is the value of £10,000? This is something that companies often will say that they want to do some pilot studies, they had lots of money for further investment, but they couldn't actually get a university to commit to taking 10,000 because it was seen as too small an amount. So we really need to reframe how do we see the value of some of these projects. And this is where ECR network engagement is really critical. By being able to represent these interests from an ECR perspective, I think you can really kind of grow your skill sets and funding. An example is the MRC IA funding program. And so that initially wouldn't allow postdocs to apply, but now they can apply as PIs. So the lobbying power of ECR networks is very important. Absolutely work with your enterprise and innovation team. They can open up a whole range of skills and opportunities for you as well, and they will be fielding lots of interest from companies as well. And then I'm just going to wrap up and say that, write your own research strategy. I think this is really important. Identify what your USPs are, what you can deliver on, and what sets you apart from contract research organizations. Identify senior academics who can help you with this. I think that will really help shape your focus. And then just to consider your outputs. They won't be interested in publishing, but there'll be lots of other outputs, and they can be case studies. So this is a case study that we published. And what are the metrics can you capture as an ECR as well? So now, when you apply to UKRI funding, you can actually reference your case studies on the institutional website. So don't underestimate the value of that. And it's excellent material for grants as well. So that's a really important angle to be pushing. So don't always focus on papers as your output. Think about the case studies, and industry is an excellent way to do that. Okay, so I'm just going to wrap up there. And so success to capitalizing in industry really comes down to being open to risk and adopting new mindsets. So think about how can you work with industry, what new opportunities are there, and how does this support your institute as well, I think is really key. Great, and there's just some acknowledgements and companies that we're working with and funders. Okay, thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone.